prediction as well. But we didn't really have too much of a clue as to where it was going to be, so we didn't have anything actionable. But nonetheless, when it happened, felt really terrible about it, of course, because we'd known for some months that this thing was pending.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does. You just couldn't, I mean, it's like you knew it, but you didn't have all the specifics.
Correct. And it's probably never going to be that way, that we'll ever get all of the specifics, just because of the way that time works. And you really have to go back to the Greeks and the others who've really thought about time, some of the Egyptian writings and some of the Arabic writings before Al-Goraham, because they thought of time in two different ways. Chronos, in the Greek word, in terms of time marching or a set number of intervals or increments making time move forward, right? Our mechanistic, if you will, concept of time.
Right.
They also had a concept of time called kairos, which is knowing the opportune moment, which also relates to the idea of being able to discern opportunity. Now, opportunity is something that the federal government actually spent, and corporations are spending a great deal of money trying to study in what they're calling opportunity science, or the science of opportunity, because what they would like to know is, you got two people sitting at a desk, they both process the same amounts of information, the same kind, almost exactly the same information, and yet one of them comes to the sudden conclusion about an opportunity that exists in that information that is not seen by the other. And the other person may be actually more intelligent, more brilliant, more aware, but the corporations and the government cannot figure out how one fellow finds opportunity and someone else doesn't. And I think it's because they're not looking at it in the correct way, and that is to view it as the Greeks did, where time has quality to it. And so, do you fish or any of that kind of thing?
I don't. I'm a complete animal activist.
Okay, I'm a vegetarian, so I'm that same way. I was just offering. Do you sail or go out on the water or often hiking?
Yeah, we have a paddle boat and all kinds of stuff. We live on a lake, so yeah.
Okay, there you go then. So you know that when you go out on the water sometime, just the mere casting off causes a separation in your experience of the time once you're on that boat, and that's why you keep seeking that experience out. It is not for the same, because the same number of minutes exist on the boat as they do on land, but let me ask you if you don't know the difference in quality between those two times.
Oh, I do, yeah. It's kind of like me and roller coasters. I'm a roller coaster freak. It's the same kind of principle. I mean, there is a difference, for sure.
Sure, and it is that quality of time that leads us to being able to find opportunity, and then also I think the quality aspect of it comes through in the psychic impressions that we have about what's pending in the future. And you yourself have said just a few minutes back that you felt that we were approaching something time-wise relative to the E equals MC squared and the physics, etc. And so you're feeling and expressing the emotion about a pending, I don't want to say anxiety, but about an emotional set about the future that is impinging on your consciousness. And that's your psychic intuition talking to you.
During this age of Aquarius, as we move ahead in our civilization chain, I've talked to people who have labeled things as a type 1, type 2, type 3 civilizations. I know you've heard about that. They said that we're like a type 0 right now, so we're getting ready to move into type 1. Do you think...
That's correct. We're about ready to go planetary.
Right. Now, do you think when that happens, that when you have these experiences like you had about the earthquake where you guys knew that this was coming, do you think when we move into the next plateau that you'll start getting more specifics and you'll start learning more about it so you can kind of pinpoint those things better?
That's a really good question. I've never considered it from that aspect before. You may quite possibly be right, but I don't know that we'll even be running the project if we got to the type 1 level, because the shift from a type 0 to a type 1 is going to be staggering, and it's going to offer huge amounts of opportunity for everyone involved. And I personally don't know that I would stay on this particular path. I think I would much rather go and mess about with free energy or some of the other opportunities that will pop up once we make that shift.
I personally want to know more about time travel once we hit it.
And I'm going to have to disappoint you, because I don't know that time travel, as we understand the concept, can exist. And I can explain why. But basically what happens is that we're all consciousness, we're all part of consciousness, we're all part of this 22 trillion times a second pulse that manifests in the form of an illusionary matter. So for you to travel into time, forward or back, presupposes that the matrix or the structure of what time used to be, assuming we were going to go into the past, or what it would be if we were going to go into the future, exists now in this instant, which is clearly not the case.
Right.
Okay, so there is only now. Insofar as our minds are concerned, we're perceiving time in a linear fashion, but all events that ever happened have already happened and are currently already happening.
Right.
So if it is feasible and you had the energy to do so, you could probably project your consciousness. Whether or not you could have a body wrapped around it, I don't know. But assuming they could project your body into the past, you would find that on arriving in that past, none of the paradoxes that existed in the science fiction literature, like killing your grandfather and wiping yourself out, could possibly exist. And you would be at that instant in a parallel universe, and you could never return to the universe from which you left. So the point of time travel would be one way.
Wow, that's no fun.
That's my thought. I wouldn't want to do it. And it may be feasible, but the amount of energy involved would be on the order of megajoules. And there may be people that are stupid enough to do such a thing, like those fellows over there with their little collider in Europe. And I don't believe their official story. I think they're actually attempting to do something along the lines of time travel and projection through time, just based on some of the things that I've seen coming out of it,
right,
and the way in which it's been breaking down. But I actually think that the results will not be what they anticipate, because they don't quite have the appropriate view on what universe is. And their view of universe, the materialistic atoms are little micro-miniature rocks wheeling around, and in fact we're in a river of time, and we're just skipping from rock to rock to rock, the way each moment seems to present itself, but that the rock we just left, which means the moment a moment ago, still exists in some weird way if we could get back to it. That's going to cause them some difficulty, because that viewpoint is erroneous. It's kind of crushing, because I always thought, it'd be really cool. You could go back and watch old games, or if you were a golfer, you could go back and watch the perfect game, or this kind of thing, or go forward and see just exactly when we get into space and that sort of a deal. But you wouldn't be able to participate. And of course, that's where the real fun is.
Well, one of the things that I kind of found about this, a couple of the guests I've had on, Spike Lee's making a movie about one of them, and it's about this whole, he's actually broken the code, the Einstein code. He's broken it. They're just trying to get their funding now, because he's figured out a way. He said, look, I'm not going to send a person back in time, but I can send information.
Sure, consciousness, yes. Yeah. I don't know that that's wise either. Okay, good and bad are labels that are applied to through your own personal filter.
Right.
And so there's always going to be ramifications, and there is no free lunch. So I imagine that they are correct, and you could indeed send back information, something non-material, by interrupting the energetic process in the past or the future.
Right.
Assuming the future, from my viewpoint, does not exist. Okay, and the past would be limited in its scope, because it would be fading. The energy around it would be dissolving every second that the future continued forward.
Right.
However, imagine yourself sitting here in your studio, and you of the future, a year from now, is going to send you, using that technique, and this gift comes back, and he brings a little device, and you type in this message, and you're going to do this really cool thing and send it back to yourself. Only you forgot that, just a year ago and a day, the first time you received that message, it sent you into a rather psychotic episode from which it took 2 weeks of, intensive psychiatric care to recover, because you weren't quite prepared to accept what was going on. So there's some risk in trying to shove information back as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're right.
But I look at humans as being energetic antennas. And so I actually do think we're perceiving information from, quote, the future, but an even future that might be assumed to be, say, 6 or 10 or 12 months out. And basically that's what we offer at Half Past Human, is this viewer interpretation of the psychic impressions that are coming through. But I actually do not possess an understanding that future exists as solid reality, and we just have to, quote, get there.
Right.
Does that make sense? It's really confusing when you talk about time and you get into some of this stuff.
But it's really awesome. It's a topic that we could explore for hours, because it's just so deep. It's so
exactly, for days even. Yeah, I could babble on about this, because I've been doing it since '94 was when I first started getting some of these ideas, and the software has been in production since '97.
Wow.
So I've had some track record with it, and some of the ideas that it's given me are counterintuitive, and I actually have some evidence to back up some of my thoughts, at least in terms of my conclusions, or some evidence as to why I'm drawing these particular conclusions.
Right.
So I don't think time exists in a solid form, but I do think that there is a template out there, if you will, through which our energy is being viewed, and that template can shift around and so on, but basically we all cooperate in a general, vague sort of a sense in forming that template ahead of ourselves. So in a weird way, it's kind of like we're all a light beam coming from a movie projector, and we're also the screen upon which that movie is going to be shown, and we alternate back and forth very rapidly between those two states. When we're in the projector, or the movie screen upon which the movie's to be shown state, we're in our normal reality, and when we're at the light beam, we're able to pick up what's going to happen on that screen in the next couple of minutes. And we can actually sort of bring that with us when we go back to become the screen again. It's a complex, kind of weird way of looking at it, but it kind of means that, to a certain extent, you probably know much more about your own immediate future than your mind is willing to put energy behind grasping. And
Wow.
if you were able to get rid of some of the impediments in your mind through meditation or any techniques, chicken dances or whatever, some of that stuff may indeed flow through. And if your mind's prepared to accept it, it might be even meaningful.
You know, Cliff, we just don't have enough time in the day. We're almost out of time, and this is it's been eye-opening. I really, this has just been an amazing interview.
Well, we'll do it again and get into some detail stuff.
I would love that. I want to thank you for taking time out and for your patience with all the crazy technical nightmares.
Don't worry about it. Like I say, the universe is quite strange, and we just have to get a good attitude about it.
Man, I love that, man. You have been an inspiration, my friend.
Well, it's the heat. That's what's doing it.
Well, thank you so much for everything. And again, maybe a month or so down the road, we can do this again. I'd really enjoy that.
Sure. Contact me and set it up. No worries. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Have a great night.
Bye.
And, wow, amazing. Clif, hi, everybody. Half Past Human.